I thought I was helping a friend start a family. My husband said it was a favor for someone who couldn't conceive a simple, kind gesture. But months into the pregnancy, I learned the shocking truth. The baby wasn't for a friend at all. It was for his boss's wife. And worse, he was having an affair with her. When I refused to give up the child, they threatened me. That's when I decided if they wanted to play dirty, I'd go public. I've always considered myself a kind person. So when my husband Adam approached me one evening with a heartfelt request, I listened. He said a close friend of his, someone he deeply respected, was struggling with infertility. The couple had tried everything, he said, and were devastated. Adam told me they'd exhausted their options and asked very gently if I would consider being a surrogate. At first, I was stunned. Me, carry a baby for someone else. It wasn't something I'd ever imagined doing, but Adam kept saying what a beautiful gift it would be. He spoke of compassion and how rare it is to truly change someone's life. They don't want to go through an agency, he explained. It's too public. They want someone they can trust. I had questions, of course I did. Who was this couple? Why didn't they want to meet me? But every time I asked, Adam said they wanted privacy. They're just embarrassed, he said. They've already been through so much, and stupidly I believed him. He framed it all so well. Told me I was doing something selfless. That I was a hero, and I wanted to be that especially for him. We'd been having a rocky year. Maybe deep down I thought this would bring us closer. The IVF process was tough. The hormone shots, the doctor visits, the emotional toll. But I powered through it all. When the test came back positive, Adam was ecstatic. He hugged me like he hadn't in months. For a moment, I felt like we were a team again. Still, something always felt off. The couple never called to thank me, never sent a note, never asked to meet. It was like I was carrying a baby for ghosts. When I voiced this, Adam got defensive. They're private people. Respect, that he snapped. That should have been my first real red flag. Then, at a prenatal appointment, I saw something that made my stomach drop. In the waiting room across the hall was Adam laughing with a woman I'd never seen before. She was beautiful, elegant, and visibly nervous, glancing from him like she didn't want to be noticed. When Adam caught my eye, his smile vanished. He stood, abruptly, muttered something to her, and walked out without a word to me. That night I confronted him. He lied, of course. Said she was a colleague. Just work stuff, he shrugged. But my gut screamed otherwise. The next week, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed him. He left work early and drove across town to a gated community. I watched him punch in a code and enter the home like he belonged there. 30 minutes later, he came out with the same woman from the clinic. They kissed. I wanted to throw up. Everything hit me at once. The secrecy, the vague explanations, the coldness. I wasn't just a surrogate. I was carrying a baby for my husband's mistress. No. His boss's wife. I Googled her name the moment I got home. Her photo came up in a company newsletter. Vanessa Miller. Philanthropist and wife of CEO Charles Miller. The same woman I saw him kissing. The infertile friend was actually the woman he was cheating on me with. And now I was carrying their child. I confronted Adam again, this time with the truth. He didn't deny it. He just begged. Said it was complicated that Vanessa was in a bad marriage, that I was helping everyone. I slapped him. He said I had to give them the baby when it was born, that I didn't have a choice. But I wasn't going to be bullied. Not by him. Not by them. And that's when I realized something else. If they were playing dirty, I needed to fight back. I had a voice, and I was going to use it. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the ceiling, replaying everything Adam's lies, his affair the way he begged me to just go along with it. My hands rested on my belly, and all I could think was, how did I get here? I was 6 months pregnant with a child that wasn't mine, and wasn't his either. It should have been a beautiful chapter in someone's life, but instead, I felt like I'd been used, tricked into growing a secret baby for a married man and his mistress. For 2 days, I stayed silent. I barely ate. I ignored Adam's messages. I needed time to think. But deep down, I already knew I wasn't handing over this baby to anyone. On the 3rd day, Adam showed up unannounced. He stood at the door with a mix of fake concern and barely disguised frustration. "Can we just talk?" he asked, trying to push his way inside. "No." "You can talk from right there," I said, blocking the door. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "You don't understand. It's not just about you anymore. You're in too deep. Vanessa's expecting this baby." "Vanessa," I snapped. "Oh, we're using first names now." His face fell. "Do you even realize what you did to me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "You lied. You tricked me into thinking I was doing something kind, when really, you were just using me to clean up your mess." "It's not a mess," he insisted. "It's complicated, but we can still fix this." He said fix like I was a broken appliance. When I didn't answer, he changed tactics. "Listen, there's still time. You can terminate. It's better than dragging this out. Terminate." My blood ran cold. "That's not happening," I said slowly. "Then give us the baby. When it's born." He snapped. "That's the deal. You don't want to make enemies here." That's when I slammed the door. I sat down on the couch, trembling. Enemies. Over a baby, they manipulated me into carrying no. If they wanted war, they picked the wrong woman. I opened my laptop and started typing. I didn't name names, not at first. I just shared my story. I posted it anonymously on a women's support forum, then on Reddit. I laid out everything: the fake request, the affair, the pressure to give up the baby. The response was overwhelming. Within hours, my post blew up. Women from all over the country reached out horrified. Some called me brave. Others told me to lawyer up fast. One even offered pro bono legal help. But the real turning point came 3 days later when a local blogger picked up the story. Then a parenting influencer. Then a podcast. Suddenly, I was being called the surrogate who fought back. The pressure worked. Adam called me, panicked. "You have to take the post down," he hissed. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Charles is furious. Vanessa's freaking out." "Good," I said. "Let them be uncomfortable for once." "You think this makes you a hero?" he barked. "No," I replied, "but it makes me free." He cursed and hung up. A day later, I received a cease and desist letter from Charles Miller's legal team. It accused me of defamation, breach of privacy, and emotional harm to the intended parents. I forwarded it to the lawyer who had offered to help. She told me to sit tight and to stop responding to them directly. But by then, the damage to their reputation had already begun. People were digging up connections linking the affair to shady business deals. Vanessa went private on all social media. Adam stopped showing up to work. And me, I kept telling my story. I didn't do it for fame. I did it because people needed to hear the truth about how easily women can be manipulated under the guise of kindness, about how consent means nothing if you're lied to. Most of all, I did it for the child I was carrying. Because someday when they ask how they came into this world, I want to be able to say, I fought for you. When I decided to go public, I had no idea just how big the storm would be. All I wanted was to reclaim my voice after being manipulated into something I never agreed to. But once the truth spread, it became clear I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was setting a precedent. And the people I'd exposed weren't about to go down quietly. The cease and desist letter was just the beginning. Within a week, I received an official notice. Vanessa and Charles Miller were suing me for breach of contract. They claimed I had agreed to carry a child for them and was now refusing to honor that agreement. They wanted custody the moment the baby was born. They even petitioned for an emergency injunction to prevent me from making defamatory public statements until the matter was resolved. Here's the problem. I never signed anything. No contract. No written agreement. Not a single piece of paper. But they were wealthy, powerful, connected. I was just a school teacher on unpaid medical leave. Thankfully, I wasn't alone anymore. Natalie, the attorney, who had reached out after reading my post, stepped in immediately. She specialized in reproductive law and women's rights, and she was fierce. She reviewed every message, every email, every vague exchange I'd had with Adam. This was never a legal surrogacy, she said flatly. No contract, no counseling, no agency. They're bluffing, but we need to stay ahead of them. She filed a countersuit before their lawyers could even finish their press statement. We claimed emotional fraud, coercion, and medical deception. I wasn't asking for money. I wanted full parental rights and protection from harassment. That move made headlines. Suddenly, news outlets were running segments titled Surrogacy or Exploitation, and Who Owns the Baby? Experts debated the ethics. Lawyers dissected the legal gray zones. Viewers took sides. And through it all, Adam tried to reach me. He texted, called, left voicemails. This is all spinning out of control, he said in one message. You're ruining my life. We can still fix this. Just give them the baby like we planned. Like we planned. There was never a plan. Just a lie. And then another. And another. I blocked him. Meanwhile, my pregnancy was progressing. The baby, his baby, was healthy, strong, and kicking like a future athlete. I started going to therapy, something I'd never done before. I needed to talk through the betrayal, the guilt, the fear. I also started journaling daily, writing letters to the baby about what was happening and how much I already loved them. I started calling them Bean. Not a name, really just something tender, something mine. The court hearings began when I was 8 months along. I sat in a courtroom swollen and exhausted, while Vanessa sat across from me in designer clothes and fake tears. Adam wasn't there for the first few sessions. He showed up later looking thinner, paler, and more embarrassed than anything else. Their lawyer argued I had agreed to carry the child and was now weaponizing the media to destroy reputations. Ours argued I had been lied to, manipulated, and never gave informed consent, making any so-called agreement null and void. There were no contracts, no signatures, not even a recorded conversation. Then they made their boldest move. They asked the court to declare Vanessa the baby's legal mother before birth. Their argument: intentional parenthood. They claimed that because Vanessa provided the embryo and intended to raise the child, the court should strip me of maternal rights. But they'd made a mistake. Natalie stood up and dropped the bombshell. The embryo wasn't genetically related to Vanessa. In their rush to cover tracks, they'd used donor eggs. That meant no biological link between Vanessa and the baby. The judge asked for time to review the evidence. The court went quiet. And just like that, their entire argument began to unravel. In the days that followed, the tide turned. Media sympathy shifted even more in my favor. Commentators stopped calling it a surrogacy dispute and started calling it reproductive coercion. Think. Pete's flooded social media, the hidden abuse of informal surrogacy. How wealth shields the powerful when consensus is a lie. I gave one interview, just one. I sat on a podcast with a journalist I trusted and told my story from the moment Adam first suggested the idea to the day I saw him kiss Vanessa outside that house. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I spoke calmly. And the world listened. When the day of delivery finally came, I was terrified not of the labor, but of what would happen once Bean was born. Natalie had filed an emergency petition asking the court to affirm my sole parental rights immediately after birth. I didn't want a long, drawn-out custody battle. I wanted to go home with my baby and start healing. Labor lasted 11 hours. When they placed Bean in my arms, everything else disappeared. The pain, the betrayal, the courtrooms, the headlines, it all melted away. He was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, big, curious eyes. Mine. The judge granted my petition the next morning. It was over. Adam tried to appeal. Vanessa's lawyers threatened to sue for damages. But without legal footing, and with public pressure mounting, they both backed down within weeks. Adam left the city. Vanessa filed for divorce. And I stayed holding my son, watching him sleep, letting the quiet fill the spaces where chaos used to live. It wasn't the life I thought I'd have. It wasn't the family I planned for. But it was honest. It was peaceful. It was mine. I named him Eli. He's 3 months old now. He laughs when I make silly faces and curls his hand around my finger like he never wants to let go. People still message me. Some share their own stories of coercion. Others just say thank you. I don't respond to every message, but I read them, every single one, because what happened to me wasn't rare. It was just hidden, and I won't let it stay hidden anymore. For a long time, I thought the hardest part was over once I brought Eli home. The court had ruled in my favor. Adam and Vanessa had seemingly backed off. And after months of legal chaos, I finally had my son all mine. No more secrets. No more threats. Just me and my baby in the little house I grew up in, wrapped in quiet moments and midnight lullabies. But motherhood doesn't come with a pause button, especially not when you're healing from trauma while raising a child born from it. The first year was in survival. Eli was a fussy sleeper and had colic for months. I was constantly exhausted. sometimes too tired to even cry. But then there were those little moments, his first giggle, the way his eyes lit up when I sang to him the tiny fist that curled around mine when he nursed. I lived for those. By the time he turned 2, Eli was talking in full sentences. Curious, clever, and stubborn, definitely my kid. He loved dinosaurs' blueberries and stacking blocks until they crashed down in wild toddler chaos. I enrolled him in a local preschool and began working part-time remotely, teaching ESL classes online. Slowly, life began to stabilize. I told him stories every night, always ending with the same words, "You were born from strength. You are loved because I chose you." I never mentioned Adam. It wasn't that I wanted to erase him. I just didn't want my son to carry the weight of a man who had abandoned us. I figured one day when Eli was old enough to ask, I'd find the right words. But as with most things in my life, the past didn't stay buried for long. It started with a letter. I found it tucked inside my mailbox one afternoon. No return address, just my name, written in a rushed scrawl. My stomach twisted the second I saw the handwriting. Adam, dear Megan, I'm sorry for everything. I've been in therapy. I've been sober. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I miss our son. Please, let me meet him. I just want a chance to do something right. I read it twice, then burned it. For days, I couldn't shake it from my mind. He had no legal rights. He'd signed them away when he lost the custody case and never appealed again. But emotionally, his name still haunted me. And now he wanted back and I didn't respond. 2 weeks later, another letter arrived. Then an email. Then a knock at my door. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Eli was napping upstairs. When I opened the door to find Adam standing there older, thinner but unmistakably him. "Before you say anything," he said quickly, "I'm not here to fight. I wanted to see him. I'm not asking for anything else." I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. "You don't get to show up like this," I said, voice sharp. "You disappeared. You lied. You manipulated me into carrying a child for your mistress, and now you think you deserve a relationship with him. I made mistakes." He started. Mistakes. I cut him off. "That word doesn't even begin to cover it." "I know," he said quietly. "I know. But he's my son, too." "No, he's not. Not legally, not emotionally. You didn't raise him. You don't get to swoop in because your guilt finally caught up with you." He blinked hard, clearly, trying not to lose his composure. "I just want to be better. I'm not asking for shared custody, just one visit." I shook my head. "I won't put Eli through that. Maybe someday when he's older he can choose. But right now I choose for him. And I'm choosing peace." He left reluctantly. I watched him walk away and felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. There was a time I loved him truly. But that love had been burned down to ash, and all that remained now was a boundary I would not cross. I thought that was the end of it. But then Vanessa returned. 3 months after Adam's visit, I got a message from an unfamiliar Instagram account. No photo. No name. Is he healthy? Is he happy? I stared at the screen, hands going numb. It couldn't be. I clicked the profile. Brand new. Only following one person, me. I blocked it immediately. A week later, I got an email from a law firm. Vanessa Miller was filing for visitation rights. I called Natalie in a panic. "Can she do that?" I asked. "She has no biological link, no legal claim. How is this even possible?" "She's trying to push a novel legal argument," Natalie explained. "She's claiming psychological parenthood, that she intended to be the mother, was involved in the conception process, and has suffered emotional harm from being cut off." "That's insane," I said. "She was never in the picture until I exposed her. She never contacted me during my pregnancy, never even spoke to me." "I know," Natalie said, "but she's banking on the courts evolving on this issue. Wealthy clients love to be test cases." So, we prepared. Again. I gathered evidence screenshots, timelines, testimonies from doctors who confirmed I was never told who the intended parents were. Natalie filed a response outlining everything: the deception, the fraud, the emotional coercion. Vanessa's team leaked the story to the media. "Philanthropist. Fights for bond with surrogate son," read one headline. Another called me vindictive. Public opinion was no longer so clearly in my favor, but I didn't care about PR battles anymore. This was about Eli. At the hearing, Vanessa appeared cool and composed, wrapped in beige silk, like a perfectly curated brand. She testified about her infertility journey, her longing for motherhood, and her deep pain at being cut off from her child. Natalie stood up and calmly dismantled it all. She never signed a contract, Natalie said. She never met the surrogate before, during, or after the pregnancy. She had no contact until her scheme was exposed online. She contributed no DNA. She did not carry the child. She did not care for the child. She has no relationship with the child. This is not psychological parenthood. This is regret. The judge requested time. The waiting nearly broke me. But in the end, the ruling came down: motion denied. Vanessa had no standing, no visitation, no contact. And just like that, she disappeared again. I stood outside the courthouse, holding Eli now, nearly 4 years old, gripping my hand like a little warrior. I kissed the top of his head and whispered, "You're safe." He looked up at me and said, "I love you, Mommy. You're my whole world." I broke down right there on the sidewalk, because the truth is, he's my whole world too. This story was never just about deception, or power, or even justice. It was about motherhood, not biology, not contracts, not money, just love. And I've never been more certain I was always meant to be Eli's mom. Eli turned 16 last week. He's taller than me now, athletic, quick-witted, and always questioning everything. He plays varsity soccer, sings off-key in the shower, and has this way of tilting his head when he's suspicious, just like I do. We're close, maybe closer than most moms and sons. That bond was forged in fire, but I knew this day would come. For years, I kept the truth guarded, waiting for the right time. I gave him pieces, how he came from a difficult situation, how I chose to keep him, because he was loved before he was even born, but not the full truth. Until one evening he came into the kitchen holding his phone. His face was pale. "Mom, is this about me?" On his screen was a decades-old article. Woman claims she was tricked into surrogacy by cheating husband and his boss's wife. My photo was at the top. My heart stopped. I took a deep breath and nodded. "Yeah, it is." He sat down. "Why didn't you ever tell me everything I wanted to?" I said gently. "I just didn't want you to carry the ugliness of how it started. You're more than that, Eli. So Much more. He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked the question I'd been dreading for years. Is he still alive, my father? Yes, I said. His name is Adam, but he's not part of our life, and that's not going to change unless you want it to. Did he ever want me? That question broke something in me. I reached across the table, taking his hand. He didn't deserve to be your father, Eli. But I promise you, every day of my life, I've wanted you. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. We cried, both of us. He asked more questions over the next few days about Vanessa, about the court cases, about why people would do something so cruel. I gave him honesty. Not bitterness. Not anger. Just truth. He started journaling. Sometimes I'd see him researching surrogacy law, or reading old opinion pieces written back when our case went viral. He was trying to understand the whole picture. One night he knocked on my bedroom door. I think I want to write about it, he said. For school. Maybe even for a scholarship essay. I smiled through my tears. Tell your story, sweetheart. It's yours now. And so he did. A few weeks later, he submitted an essay titled Born from Truth, How My Mother Chose Me Twice. It made me cry from the first sentence to the last. He ended it with this line, I was never a mistake, even if I came from one. I was a choice, and she chose me every single day. It won a statewide competition. We went out for milkshakes to celebrate, and I watched him laugh carefree and full of light. The past didn't define him, it made him stronger, kinder, fiercer. I spent so long worried the truth would break him, but in the end it gave him wings. Now he's looking at colleges. He wants to study law, family law, of course. He says he wants to help kids like him. I couldn't be prouder. And as for me, I've healed too. Not all at once. Not perfectly. But enough. Because in the end, love won. And that's the only legacy that matters. The end. Did this story make you see a part of yourself? If it did, don't forget to leave a comment to share your thoughts. And most importantly, subscribe to Family Story, my husband, so you can hear more heartfelt family stories every week. Marriage isn't just a journey. It's a long story. And you are our companion on every page.